Thank you, everybody. That's enough cheering. You can sit down now. Thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you for the welcome. I'm Steve Lentini. I appreciate the welcome. I'm Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for Different Thinking for Different Times. And this podcast has been all about expanding our thinking from small minded, limited thinking into infinite thinking, taking small minded, what I call the Acorn Brain, the small minded thinker that resides in all of us, as far as I know, everyone I ask, you have that small, incessant voice that talks to you. Hopefully, not. You're not talking to it in the shopping mall, but and do you have that voice and it's constantly making you wrong, or perhaps telling you that you didn't do well enough at something, you could have done better, or perhaps it's making everyone around you wrong? Whether it's a political argument or a religious argument or about current events in the world, everyone's taking sides without any flexibility. I'm reading a book by William Ury. He's a fascinating investigator, and the name of the book is The Path to Possible. Oh, that's actually chapter 1. The name of the book is, I suppose I should have had that first. I'm sorry. Yeah, Possible: How We Survive and Thrive in an Age of Conflict. And William Ury is a fascinating negotiator. He's been around for a long time. He's 70, he's a few years younger than me. But what he talks about in the book was that what does it take to transform tough conflicts from destructive confrontation into collaborative negotiation? Then he goes on to say, the real problem is not conflict, but the destructive way, and I'm quoting from the book, that we deal with it. And then the fascinating one that I love, that I, of course, highlighted, is that what if we ran to conflict? What if we embraced it? And that we met it with curiosity and collaboration. That's what I've been talking about, having a dialogue. I featured a lot of sage advice in my book, Sage Advice, Wisdom for Living from Throughout the Ages, where I talk about, where I researched many, many sages that have given advice about how to live in a world with dialogue and collaboration. If you think that these political troubles have been around only recently, Cicero said in like 140 or 150 BC, might have been AD. Maybe I should look it up in the book. Let me look it up in the book. I'll tell you what page he's in, Cicero. So Cicero is on page 25. So I'll look it up. So I have it exact for you. So he lived from 106 to 43 BC. All right. So it was sometime in between there. He said, politicians aren't born, they're excreted. That's fascinating, right? Politicians aren't born, they're excreted. So think about that. That goes back over 2,000 years, and people were still looked at politicians that way. And politicians do it to themselves because they get up and play this game of pointing fingers and not collaborating. And it's easy to make everyone wrong. Monday morning quarterbacks are always right. So, small minded thinking is any judgment you have. When you're judging someone while they're talking, you're missing the wisdom the Creator is sharing with you, which is the possibility to consider with curiosity how they got to that point. How did they come to that conclusion? What facts did they use? What facts would they like to share? And then Are they open to a dialogue about it? Are they open to the possibility of a compromise? And with that kind of curiosity, that's expanded limitless thinking. Instead of both people rigidly taking a side and just butting heads to try to change someone's mind, it doesn't work. And a monologue is defined as the story one tells oneself, right? The reality in your mind. A dialogue is a jointly created reality. Look it up. Those are the definitions. I also wrote the books You May Be Full of Shit If. They're all available on Amazon. You May Be Full of Shit If. And then when Amazon wouldn't advertise it, because they published it, but they didn't advertise it because it had profanity in it, I wrote the next week, You Might Be Full of Number 2. After All We Know Better, the woke edition. But I'm not making fun of anyone in these books. What I'm making fun of is this place we've come to that we're afraid of conflict. People are talking about the country sliding into the possibility of civil war. Why? Conflict is natural. Without chaos or conflict, there'd be no creation. Gurdjieff said that in the early 1900s, George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. Without chaos and conflict, there would be no creation. Physicists can tell you that about the universe. The universe is filled with chaos and conflict. Creating stars is not an easy thing. The birth of planets and suns and black holes. Talk about chaos. They suck in everything around them. So we're surrounded by it, and we forget that there is a superior reasoning power that created. Here's the earth painted on a marble. There's a superior reasoning power that created this unimaginable universe, as Einstein once said. Think about that. We have to have a sense of humor about ourselves. I just published on Amazon the book, What If? Answers to the Most Inane Questions by AI. You want to talk about having a chuckle? I'm the one that created the questions, some crazy questions, because I have a sense of humor about my life and about this life. And that's because I had a near-death experience on November 18th, 2002. I saw the other side. If we all had a peak, we wouldn't be so petty. We'd all have a sense of humor because we are loved beyond imagine. We are loved. God didn't create all the institutions. God didn't create sin or the creator or the goddess or the quantum field, as Joe Dispenza says. Whatever you want to call it. If it's small-minded, it's not what created a universe. And it's not the energy that created a universe. In fact, the divine or God, the goddess, whatever you want to call it, is never absent. It's in all these situations that are bothering us, bugging us, all these people that are bothering us and bugging us, all the differences. It's hard for us to understand it. I mean, after all, we don't understand all the creatures on Earth. The ants, the bugs, and microscopic beings that we can't see, the birds, the lions and tigers, the giraffes. Just think of the variety, the trillions of different life forms on this earth, all working, many of them invisibly, with a job. They have a task. Humans' task is to learn to overcome small-minded thinking. Because I can tell you, when I left intensive care, when I left my bed, two friends at the end of my bed, 1 second, the next second, I flatlined and I was one with everything and nothing, one with the infinite. That little thinker didn't go with me. Sin has been created to keep people in line. And of course, that created religions. I think religions are wonderful. Anything that brings people to faith. But when you start making others wrong because they don't believe as you do, think about how crazy that is. The creator of an infinite universe made only one way to get back to him. By the way, the only way to get back to him is we leave our body. That's how we get back to him or her, the god or the goddess, the divine or the quantum field. We get back to the infinite creative stew called life. But don't take my word for it. Begin to challenge your own thinking. Begin to think like a creator of a universe, right? Look, I'll even bring you the bigger globe that I have. I'll bring you the one that's the size of a popper. This is the large version of how tiny we are. We're a speck. We have to get over ourselves and have a sense of humor. Our leaders, by the way, are mostly at fault as well, and so are we because we elect them. We elect people. We have a two-party system that's failed us because when it digresses into just finger pointing and lack of accountability, trying to get elected so that they can stay in power, it tells me we need more than two parties. And we need a people, perhaps a party in the middle, perhaps more defined parties around the edges so we can clearly see that they're far left or far right. And then if we had 4 or 5 parties, they'd all have to negotiate to have a majority in Congress. They would have to learn to deal with conflict. Those are my thoughts. And I agree with William Ury. It's a great book. I think we need to embrace our differences, embrace conflict, embrace having a dialogue, and run toward it because there has been nothing created without some conflict. Think about it. Work on it yourself. If each individual started having a dialogue and not believing each position they have as firm, when people say, well, this is who I am, get over it, that's not true. It's who you've chosen to be. You can be a more limitless thinker, but you have to begin letting some of the opposite thoughts into your mind with curiosity, embracing them. I don't think that your brain will fall out if you have an open mind. We find all kinds of reasons to have conflict. We can find as many reasons and more to compromise and to embrace each and every life form. All the different types of people are from one race, the human race. We have our differences to learn to appreciate each other, appreciate each other's cultures, backgrounds, history. Think about it. You don't have to do it because in my book, You Might Be Full of Shit If and You Might Be Full of Number Two, both of those books I talk about never follow anyone or anything blindly. Prove things to yourself. Prove your limitless capacity because you're the one programming your mind, by the way. You might believe that thinking, but it's because you've programmed it. You've decided to believe this little thinker, what I call the Acorn Brain. You've decided to believe a small-minded version of yourself. Much more is possible. Again, that's up to you. If you have questions for me, you want to be a guest, I've had many guests recently. I have more. I have another guest that'll be posted next week. Someone's calling me already. If you want to be a guest, you want to challenge me, that's fine. Reach out to me, steve@stevelentini.com. Look, I'll show you on one of the books how to spell my name, steve@stevelentini.com. I'm glad to have you as a guest. Come and challenge me. Remember, I might just ask you, does that sound like small-minded thinking? Consider it. Thank you.